Let's just make sure that we are live on YouTube as well too. So welcome everybody. Hello, Mie. Compliments of the season. Aren't you supposed to be on leave? Hello, hello. Okay, we're live on YouTube as well too. All right. Hi, Simi. I was supposed to send you a message this morning, and I'll call you when I'm done today if it's not too late. Hope you're good. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to part two. Welcome to part two. I hope you have your notebooks ready. I hope you have your journals ready because today, I know that many people like to hear me talk. But today is not just for talking. Today is also for implementing. Because at the end of today, I want you to have a blueprint, a plan for your 2026 Q1 specifically. So that'll be January, February, March of 2026. And the reason why we are doing it this way is like, if you haven't watched yesterday's session, you can definitely do that after today's live. But setting goals on an annual basis is not effective. Many of us did it for decades. It hasn't worked because annual goals, you set them in January, by February, March, you've forgotten about them. And by the time November comes around, we're now trying to catch up, wondering where the year went. And so as yesterday we built on the foundation, today, we're actually going to do the work of planning and setting our goals. And specifically, we're setting our goals on a quarterly basis. So today, we're going to focus on January, February, March of 2026. If this is the first time we're connecting, I'm Dr. Yewande. I'm a medical doctor. I'm a mental health therapist. And today, I'm going to be guiding you through your 2026 goals. And what makes me the person to do this? First of all, my community members have asked me to do this time and time again. They want to know, Yewande, how are you able to balance everything? Being a mom, being a wife, being active in your community, you run a business, you're a doctor, you do all these things. How are you able to do it all? So people ask me these questions. And not only how am I able to do it all, how am I able to do it all with grace? I think the only evidence of all the work I do is maybe my gray hair. Part of me thinks that that's genetic or maybe medical school, but how are you able to do it all with grace? And how are you able to balance all these roles without going crazy? How, just tell us how. And so that's why I'm doing this. This is not therapy. It's not even really coaching. I'm not going to necessarily tell you this is how you must set your goals. I'm just sharing what works. Not only what has worked for me, but also what has worked based on science, based on research. So nothing I'm going to be sharing to you today is anything that I've reinvented, but basically putting all the things that have worked over time, all the things that have worked when it comes to psychology and the science of human behavior. It's just effective. It's just effective. Yesterday, I had shared my binder of my goals. And actually somebody had asked me, she said she wanted to see how I use a binder. And so Rennie, I will definitely share a video. I'll share it in the email list as well too. But if you look at the things that I'm able to accomplish in such a short amount of time, it looks like a lot, right? It looks like a lot, and many might even say it is a lot. But I don't do it in a way that wears me down. I don't do it in a way that breaks my mind or breaks my body or breaks my spirit. I do it in a way that's sustainable. And this is how I'm able to get it done. I'm going to be sharing it with you today. So first of all, I want to go through some of the mistakes that people make when it comes to setting their goals. The first being, like I said, setting goals on an annual basis. You set them in January. By the time November comes, you're wondering where the year went. and you don't really have anything to show for it per se. Or maybe the things that you do have to show for it are things that aren't meaningful. And so you're left at the end of the year wondering, okay, well, that was an okay year, but I didn't really do the things that meant something specifically to me, the things that I wanted to do as far as things that felt meaningful and purposeful. Maybe you did a lot of things when it came to your career. Maybe you did a lot of things when it came to your home life, running here and there for the kids. But when you actually think about yourself and your growth, your development, the things that light you up, the things that bring you joy, there really isn't a whole lot as far as that purposeful, meaningful work. So the approach of setting your goals on an annual basis really doesn't serve the purpose of living a life that you are excited to wake up to. Yes, you might go through the mundane and the routine of it all, but does life really feel exciting? No, not really, because of the way you've been setting your goals. So that's the first mistake, is setting goals just based on an annual timeline. The second mistake that's also very common is not taking into account your season. And this for me has always been the game changer. Before I go ahead and set my goals, I'm really intentional about recognizing the season of life that I'm in at that particular point in time. Of course, as a Christian, as someone who reads the Bible, prays, and spent a lot of time meditating and reflecting. My seasons are determined from a place of prayer. My seasons are determined from a place of reflection and introspection. And so maybe the whole world might be going one direction. If that's not the season for me, I will be going in a very different direction. And the mistake that I see a lot of people making is that they just follow the trend, or they follow their feelings or their emotions. They go based on how they feel per time instead of really taking the time to discern what is the season? What is the season, and what is the season demanding of me right now? In fact, I'm just going to read something that I read this morning. And it's from the Bible, okay, but whether you're someone who reads the Bible or not, this is still going to be relevant to you. And so it's Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 to 8. So this book of Ecclesiastes was written by the wisest man who ever lived, so King Solomon of Israel. And so this is what he's saying in these few verses. And I really want you to listen to this with an open mind, because if you are really able to hack getting and discerning the season that you're in right now, it's going to make a world of difference when it comes to setting goals that you will actually start and finish. Because when you start setting goals in the wrong season, what ends up happening is you don't finish. You don't finish, and you have all these unfinished projects, unfinished goals. You start a book, you don't finish it. You start an organization, you don't complete it. You start an idea, you don't finish, because you have failed to discern the season. So this says there's an occasion or a season for everything, and a time for every activity under under heaven or under the sun. A time to give birth and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill, a time to heal, a time to tear down, a time to build, a time to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to throw stones, and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace, and a time to avoid embracing. I'm going to come back to that in a second. A time to search and a time to count as lost, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Okay. Now, all this is saying when it comes to our goals and being able to really discern the season that we're in, is it's important for you to know what the time is. what is the time for you? What is the season for you? I particularly like the part that says a time to embrace and a time to avoid embracing, because what that speaks to is boundaries, right? Many of us, we talk about boundaries all the time. There is a time to embrace and there's a time to avoid embracing. When it comes to certain projects, there might be a time for us to withdraw and go into a time of isolation, so to speak, where we shut out all distractions. Maybe we're not going to all the parties. Maybe we're not going to all the networking events. Maybe we're not going to all the things that we're being invited to go for. And we're called to a season of just being by ourselves. And a season might change where no, it's time for you to go outside. It's time for you to leave your house. It's time for you to connect. It's time for you to develop and foster relationships. And so the mistake that many of us make is that we fail to discern the season. We fail to check the time. We fail to look inside of ourselves or even outside of ourselves to decide, okay, what is this season actually demanding of me? One of the examples that I like to use is a farmer. If a farmer is not in tune with the season that his farm is, or the land is, or the environment is, the farmer is going to end up frustrated trying to plant something in the wrong season, expecting a harvest when you're supposed to be resting the soil, or expecting or planting when you're supposed to be harvesting. And so it goes the same for us as well too. When we don't know the season of life that we're in right now, we're going to end up really upset, really frustrated, trying to follow. And by the way, you could be literally a twin and two of you are in different seasons. Okay, so it has nothing to do with who you have around you or what the people around you are doing, or all my classmates are doing this, or all my colleagues are doing that. This is when you really go into yourself. You learn to trust your inner wisdom. You learn to trust your intuition. You learn to quiet the noise, all the distractions, the shiny objects, and really pay attention to what the season is calling you to pay attention to right now. I remember back in 2020, which was really the beginning of when I changed my career, when I started to change my career. That was a season of answering to my purpose. As many of you know, I used to be an emergency room physician. I also worked in the intensive care. In 2019, I went on maternity leave, and in that season, I found myself responding to a call outside of traditional clinical medicine. I didn't stop traditional clinical medicine altogether. In fact, somebody asked me about a week ago, would you ever go back to clinical medicine? Yes, I still might if I want to, if the season calls for it. But right now, the season is calling for me to focus on, it's still medicine. I still see patients, I still run a practice, but niched into mental health. And that's just the season that I'm in right now. So 2020 was a season of me answering to a call. And so even though many of my colleagues were building their careers and taking trainings when it came to specific skills in emergency medicine, I was doing something completely different. 2021 was my year of retraining. So once I really clarified what that purpose was, what that calling was, I went back to train as a mental health therapist, a psychotherapist. It was a training specifically for medical doctors. And I did that for 18 months. And then once that season was over, it was a season of me then responding to the call of starting my own mental health practice. And so in November of 2022, Cami Counseling Services was born. I did it without a blueprint, but again, the season was right. Once the doors opened, within 2 weeks, we were completely booked out, and we have been completely booked out ever since. And so I say all that to say that even within Cami Counseling Services, 2023 was a year of restructuring our team, was a year of building our systems, building our structure so that my team was able to run with things like the bookings, the follow-ups, the emails, while I could focus on delivering the clinical work on a day-to-day basis. And so again, I just share a little bit of that to explain to you that your seasons are going to look different. And in order to actually create a life that you're excited about and a life you're excited to wake up to, it's important to start off by discerning the season and deciding what that season looks like, not for everybody else, but specifically for you. So that's the second mistake that I make. That's the second mistake that I see people make is that they fail to plan, they fail to set goals according to the season of life that they're in. And by the way, your season can last a year, it can last 3 months, it can last 6 months. It all really depends, but it's so important to really pay attention to what the season is calling for your attention. And we're going to go into step by step of what that looks like. The next mistake that I see people make is that they fail to plan. They fail to plan. So they have this goal, and many of you may have heard of the SMART goals, which, neither here nor there for me. So they set their specific goals, their measurables. They make sure that it is attainable, it's realistic and relevant, and it's time bound, but there's no actual plan. They don't put pen to paper. They don't schedule things. They don't have any kind of structure to support them. There's no momentum to keep going because they just wrote it down in a journal somewhere, or maybe they have a beautiful vision board that they've created. But a goal without a plan is just a wish. So if you find yourself setting the same goals year after year, or you set the goals and nothing ever comes from it, it may be because number one, you haven't discerned the season, or maybe because number one, like I said, you're just doing it on an annual basis and you're not going back to it on a regular basis. Number two, you haven't really set your goals according to the season that you're in. Number three, it could also be because you're not setting a plan. You don't have a plan in place. And there's one more reason that I'm going to come back to at the end. But those are the main things that I see that people will do or fail to do, which will cause them to not really follow through with their plans. Yes, Mashakwe, a goal without a plan is just a wish. So planning, planning, planning is super important. So what we're going to do today is we're going to spend some time really diving into those first two things. So I already talked those first three things. So setting your goals on a 90-day cycle or a quarterly cycle is what I recommend. Number two, we're going to talk about how to then decide what is this season calling from me. And then number three, we're going to talk about what that plan looks like. And like I said, there's one more thing that I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to bring it up at the end. Let me just go to YouTube and make sure that things are still working on that end of things. Yesterday, there was a little bit of an audio issue for a couple of minutes. So let me just check YouTube. Okay, looks like we're good. All right, so let me just ask everybody, have you set your goals for 2026 yet? Have you set your goals for 2026? Yes. Just yes or no. I have, at least for the first quarter. I haven't set the whole year yet. I have an idea of what I want 2026 to look like. Like I shared yesterday, my word for the year is connection. Connection, part of that is community, thoughtfulness, caring. Those are some of the things that I really want to focus on this year, and that's personally and professionally. And so when I set my goals, I'm keeping that in mind. By the end of 2026, what I want to do is I want to feel connected. I want to feel thoughtful. I want to feel caring. I really want to build some of those skills. And that's a big part of my 2026. All right, so Moshakwe says yes. Deboing, hi. Deboing, hi, Moshakwe. Both say yes. And so how are you feeling about your 2026 goals? How are you feeling about your 2026 goals? Excited, overwhelmed, nervous, neutral? How are you feeling about your 2026 goals? Let me just grab my own goals. Okay, so I like to put my goals on a notice board so that I can see them. And I change this out every month. Some of them I change out every quarter. So we're going to go through all of that anyways. So nervous, they are so big. Yes, I love that for you. Hopeful, wonderful. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm very excited about 2026. I know that it's going to be a challenging year, with everything that's going on in our environment, but that doesn't mean we cannot do well. It doesn't mean that we cannot thrive. It doesn't mean that we cannot succeed despite the challenges. And setting your goals, putting them top of mind, having a plan, setting them according to your season, having structure, having community accountability, all of those things are what's going to help us thrive despite all the external challenges. So let's get started on the goal setting process. Like I said, I already have my goals. I use a combination of digital and paper when it comes to setting my goals. But the first thing that I do is I really sit down and, like I talked about, reflect on the past season. I have a system where I look back on everything that I said I was going to do, and I have a column for review where I write notes and I think about, okay, what worked, what didn't, what might I want to do better next time? What got in the way? How did I fail to show up the way that I was supposed to show up? And so that's the first thing I do is really just look back and do a bit of a review. Then I think about, okay, what is this season calling for me? On a quarterly basis, I will look over the next 3 months and think, okay, over the next 3 months, what's coming up for us as a family? What's coming up for us as a company, as a business? And so it may look like, okay, I know that over the next 3 months, I'm going to be moving. And so what that might look like is then turning down certain opportunities that will get in the way of something big like that, because that's a pretty big project. Or I look over the next 3 months and I see, oh, okay, it's our Christmas is coming, for example. And so what that looks like is I'm going to start to create a plan based on that season. Or I look and think, okay, we have family members coming to visit. And for me, that is more help. Okay. Yes, it's nice to have family members around, but I look at that as more help, which means that I can go harder in my business. In fact, we had a family member who was in town for 6 weeks in September, October, and they left early November. And what that meant was I was able to do a lot more work in that season because I had additional help to help with the kids, watch the kids while I conducted sessions and things like that. So having an idea of what's coming up is going to really help you discern what the season is calling for you. It may also look like understanding that, okay, I'm postpartum, for example, and in a postpartum season, you're focused on recovery, rest and recovery. It may look like tax season coming up. In fact, one of my Q1 goals is my taxes. So that might look like focusing on financial structure, review, um, looking at your income, your expenses, cleaning up your bookkeeping, maybe even hiring a new accountant or bookkeeper. So when you're able to look ahead and see what the season is calling for you, it really helps you shape your goals. And so I want you to spend, I know that many of you have already set your goals, but this might be a good, remember that your goals they're not designed to be set in stone. You need to be open to editing them and you need to be open to being flexible and dynamic as well. Within reason, you don't want to be changing your goals every week, but it's good to be open to fine tuning them or finessing them as the time goes by. So I want you to spend some time really thinking about the season that's coming up for you. Is this a rest and recovery season? Is this a season where you want to go all in your career, in your business? Is this a season where you want to really focus on your health because maybe you've noticed certain aches and pains, or maybe you got a report from the doctor at your end of year annual checkup? Is this a season where you really want to tap into your relationships with your kids because maybe they are going through puberty or they're teenage, or maybe they just they're now school age kids. So I want you to take some time to really reflect and think about and decide on the season that you're in right now. For me, like I said, it's a season of connection and specifically connecting with my extended family. So this looks like my cousins, my aunts and uncles, my siblings. We're a very big family and we're spread around the world. And so my season right now that I'm naming is a season of connection and also a season of community. And so I want you to just spend some time deciding and naming the season that you're in right now. And if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. I'm also checking YouTube as well. So let me know if there are any questions and I'm happy to answer them. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to decide on your season, and then we're going to go into the next step of the goal setting process. All right. And it's okay to have one season for your business or your career and a different season for your personal life. Or it's also okay to have the same for both. So I'll give an example. For me, like I said, connection, community, that runs across the board. So what that looks like is we are going to be doing some connection, something a little different in my practice that fosters connection. So things like well, because of the nature of my work, it's very hard to bring my patients together in a community. But in the other arm of my business, so doing well, I'm hoping to have community events, meetups, for example. Um, Thoughtfulness is part of that. So reaching out to our highest referrals. So we have a few people in our practice who are always referring their family members, their friends, people in their community. They're always referring us to us. So we're going to be doing something kind of thoughtful for them as well too. So Love Letters to You says, should this be for the 90-day period or the entire year? The 90-day period. The 90-day period. We're going to focus on just the 90-day period from here on out. Okay. And you'll be surprised at how much you can accomplish in 90 days. When we spread things out too much, there's a law called Parkinson's Law. And what Parkinson's Law says is that work will naturally fill up the amount of time that you give to it. So if you say you want to plan an event and you give yourself 12 months, it's going to take 12 months to plan the event. But if you tell yourself, I'm going to give myself 90 days to plan the event, you will still be able to plan the event in 90 days. So we want to keep the timeline at 90 days because that gives you enough time to actually execute, but it's not long enough that you lose the excitement, you lose the focus. So it's for a 90-day period. Okay, thank you for that question. So once we've decided the season and we've named the season for what it is, let me actually give a few examples. So say you've decided that this season is going to be a season of health and wellness. You'll decide that, okay, over the next 90 days, so this is where we're going to go into the goal setting. Over the next 90 days, I want to focus on my eating habits. All right. Because the whole year, you can certainly focus on your health, but you can break it up into 90-day projects. This is where we're going now into project-based thinking when it comes to our goals. And this is something that I highly encourage. So if you say you want to spend the next 90 days on the project of cleaning up your eating, you will spend the next 90 days working on that. So that might mean getting different tools for your kitchen, tools that will help you meal prep, tools that will help you cook efficiently and effectively. It may look like spending the next 90 days experimenting with different recipes like salad bowls or low carb bowls where you have a lot of protein bowls, for example. You spend the next 90 days cutting out fizzy drinks from your diet, right? So you see, it's not now this whole 1 year project where you can just break it down into a 90-day project, and it makes it less overwhelming. Does that mean you're not going to exercise for the next 90 days? Does that mean you're not going to focus on your sleep for the next 90 days? No, you can still do all those things, but the primary focus becomes this one thing that you are focused on. Like I said yesterday, follow one course until successful. It becomes this 90-day project that you're focused on. And when that 90-day project ends, you can move on to the next thing where you say, okay, over the next 90 days, now that I have a good handle on my eating, I know what I have in my kitchen, I've gotten used to my new cooking utensils, I now want to focus on weightlifting for the next 90 days. Many times, another reason why our plans fail or our goals fail is because we try to do too much all at once. I have many women in my practice that are in that club, team too much. They want to do this and they want to do that and they want to do this and they want to do that. And I'm having to remind them and say, let us break it down so that it's easier for us to keep the momentum going. Okay. So you've named your season. Now we're going to go into deciding on what our goal is. And like I said, we're going to do this with a project-based approach. And so, what are some examples of project-based goals? So, if I say that I want to, and by the way, your project doesn't necessarily have to take a whole 90 days. It could be 1 month of a project. So if I decide that I want to start connecting more with my referrals, people who are my high referral partners in the practice, I might say that, okay, for the next 90 days, I'm going to send them a thank you email once a month. So just, thank you so much for your referrals. It means so much. And then maybe February is Valentine's, around Valentine's, I may also send them, your referrals mean so much. We really want to do this to appreciate you. And then in March, once again, I might send them a gift or something along those lines. And so again, you can see how that is fitting with my goal of connection, but I'm spreading it out over 90 days. Let me give another example. Say I want to stay connected with my extended family members. This is just an example. And I say over the next 90 days, I want us to have, I want us to have 3 family events, virtual events. And so again, that's another project. So we might have one the last weekend of January, another one the last weekend of February, and another one the last weekend of March. And in doing so, I have served my purpose and I have, delivered on the goal that I set for myself when it comes to connecting with extended family and friends. I'm going to give one more example, and that might be an example with networking. When I say that this year, 2026, in Q1, I really want to expand my network. I really want to connect with other like-minded professionals. So that might look like, again, I might even just go to one major conference or one major event, but that will be spread out into researching what the conference is, maybe booking the tickets, booking the hotels, seeing if I can get other colleagues to come along. And that might be just one project that I do specifically when it comes to that goal. So I've given you many different examples, or a few different examples when it comes to what a 90-day goal looks like. I gave you an example when it came to health and fitness. I gave you an example when it came to connection, not just in your personal life, but also in your career and your professional life. So what I want you to do is go ahead and set your own 90-day goal. You've discerned your season. Think about what area of life you want to focus on. Do you want to focus on your finances? Do you want to focus on your marriage? Do you want to focus on your parenting? Do you want to focus on your business, your career? Do you want to focus on your health, right? Pick one area of your life to start with, and then come up with a 90-day project, a 90-day plan, something that you can spread out over the next 3 months, that by the end of it, you can actually say, this is what I did. This is what I accomplished. Other examples that I have here are filing my taxes. Okay, so over the next 90 days, by the end of March 2026, I want to have filed my taxes because tax season is in April. Am I going to spend 1 week filing my taxes? No, it's a project. I'm going to start by gathering all my expenses. I'm going to start by gathering my income, and I'm going to spread it out over the next 90 days. One more personal example is I'm in a program, a parenting program right now. It's a 1 year long program. And my 90-day goal is to stay consistent with the readings in that program. So each month we have readings, we have assignments. And so my goal over the next 90 days is to stay consistent with the readings, the books, the assignments over the next 90 days. So I've given you so many different examples, right, on how not only to discern your season, but also to pick a 90-day goal, a 90-day project, something that by the end of the 90 days, you can actually look and say, yes, I have done this. You don't want it to be vague. You don't want to just say, oh, I want to have a better relationship. No, what does that look like? Does that mean 3 date nights? Does that mean 6 date nights? You don't want to just say, oh, I want to sleep better. What does that mean? Does that mean getting to bed at 10:30 every night? Does that mean leaving your phone outside of your bedroom? Okay, so these are so many different examples. If you have any questions, let me know. But I'm going to give you a few more minutes to decide on what that 90-day project looks like. And how you want to phrase it is, for example, by the end of March 2026, I have filed my taxes. Or by the end of March 2026, I have participated in at least 9 out of 12 family meetings. Or by the end of March 2026, I have kept up with my intentional parenting readings. Those are all my specific examples for the next 90 days. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to complete your own as well too. Hello, everyone who has just joined. Thank you for joining. What we're doing is we are setting our goals for 2026. We discerned our season. We decided on what the goals are going to be. And now we're actually writing them down so that they're not just in our head, they're actually on paper. Now you may be asking, okay, Dr. Yewande, I have decided that I want to focus on my extended family relationships. I have decided that I want to focus on my finances. And I've also decided that I want to focus on my parenting. Those are my specific examples. To keep things simple, you can just start with one. But Dr. Yewande, what about my health? What about my home life? What about my marriage? What about my spiritual life, right? What about my professional development? It's okay. We're getting to that as well too. We're getting to that as well too. Remember, we talked about discerning your season. Your season is going to determine the main focus. Doesn't mean you're going to neglect everything else, but we're getting to that. Just start with these main ones, the main projects, and then we're going to take it from there. I see some questions. Okay, yes. Hi, Toy. Yes, a replay of today's session will be available as well on YouTube. Yep. And then Kimberly, hi, Kimberly. Kimberly says, I'm falling into the team too much category. I have two main areas that I want to focus on, but I have multiple goals under it. It is really hard for me to choose one to start. And I totally understand that. Sometimes it's impossible to pick one. So, for example, you might have a professional goal and you might have a personal goal. Um, and it might be very hard to actually pick one to start. But I'm going to give a few pointers, okay? Because depending on, yesterday I talked about conflicting goals. Sometimes we say that we want to save money, and then in the same breath, we're talking about renovating our house. So the first thing, Kimberly, I want you to ask yourself, are these two goals conflicting goals? Are these two goals conflicting goals? Because if they are, then you have to pick one. You have to pick one. Or you can focus on one as a major goal and then do the other one on a smaller scale. I remember when I was starting my mental health practice, and I was also trying to build a community, which was a completely separate business, a completely separate entity. At some point, it felt like I was being pulled in multiple different directions because the practice demanded so much. And building a different business, a community, also demanded so much. So, what I ended up doing was I ended up scaling way back on what I was doing to serve the community. I continued with my podcast and I continued with the emails, and everything else just kind of fizzled out, which was okay. And now that my mental health practice is full on, I have a great team. We know what we're doing. The systems are in place. I've now come back to my community, and this is where you see me posting more on social media. It's where you see me offering services and content like this. It's where you see me starting a YouTube channel, right? Prior to now, I was being pulled in multiple different directions. And something else, I didn't neglect it completely, but I had to chill on it a little bit. I had to bring it down a notch a little bit. And so sometimes it takes really hard decisions. It might be a little bit heartbreaking, deciding on what to let go of. But I promise you that if you're able to focus even if it's 80% on your energy on the one big thing, there will be time to circle back to the other thing and make it grow even bigger. All right. Hello, Deb the counselor. Great to see you. Kimberly, I don't know if that helps. And remember, okay, remember that these aren't set in stone. If you have to pick one, pick one. And then if 2 months from now it feels like, okay, you know what, this was not maybe the right choice, you can come back to the second one. You can come back to the second one. So a couple of things I said here, sometimes it's impossible to pick one. Sometimes two things are happening simultaneously and it just is what it is. Number two, if they're conflicting goals, then you do have to do your best to pick one. Doesn't mean you neglect the other one altogether. It may mean bringing it down a notch or a few notches, still keeping a bit of momentum going, but maybe not 100% of your energy, your attention. And number three, it may be that you just have to really make some hard decisions. Understanding that you can still come back to it. If it feels like you picked A and B is really what you need to be working on, you can start with A and then circle back to B, and that's okay too. Oh, I'm glad it helps. All right. Hi, Grady. I have four professional slash financial slash parenting. So I have four goals. So four areas: professional, financial, parenting, and personal. So which one are you going to put most of your energy to in this season? Because I know you personally, I'm asking. Because I know you personally, and we spent a lot of time together over the past couple of weeks. I'm asking which one are you going? And remember, I said we're going to come to the fact that it doesn't mean you will neglect all other areas, but pick a couple, Karidi. Pick a couple because what's going to end up happening is you might find yourself being pulled, especially if they're major projects, you might find yourself being pulled in multiple different directions. So, for example, I don't have a marriage goal in this season. Whereas last quarter, I did have a marriage goal. which was for us to have consistent date nights. And now that our date nights are consistent every Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m., I don't have it on my list for this quarter. There's momentum going there. I'm not doing anything new in that area. Okay. I also don't have let me see, what else don't I have? I don't have a networking goal necessarily this season. I have a couple of speaking engagements coming up, but I'm not actively putting any efforts into that particular area of my life. Okay. I don't have a fitness goal this season. And if you know me, you know that my fitness is something that I'm always working towards. Why? Because January, February, March are big spiritual um, months for me. And so I don't really see myself going to the gym five times a week. I don't really see myself, doing an overhaul when it comes to my diet. In fact, there's a fast that's coming up, right? And so I don't really have a fitness goal per se in this season. But does that mean I'm going to neglect my fitness? No. I'm still going to take my vitamins. I'm still going to drink my water. I'm still going to watch my sleep. So there's things that are still happening. It's just not going to be a major project for me over the next 3 months. Okay, so Curdy, pick one. All right, professional. I have an exam to do that's time bound. So perhaps that one. Yes, I would say again, when we talk about discerning the season, it's sounding to me that that's what the season is calling your attention for. Does that mean you're not going to be a mom? Absolutely not. You're still going to do your mom things. Does that mean you're not going to go for your spin classes? Of course, you're still going to go for your spin classes. You're still going to take care of your health. You're still going to eat well, right? So all those, not like you're going to neglect all those things altogether. It's just that you're not doing any, there's no major projects in those other areas. Okay. Maybe when I show you my list, it might be a little bit more clearer. Creative, does that help? Okay, Tony, you're welcome. I'm glad that that's helpful. So, like I said, all we're doing now is setting the project according to the season that we're in. So, Creative, you said you have an exam, so I would say, yes, that would be something to definitely focus on. You may have one or other two things going on, but really there shouldn't be so many different projects happening at the same time. That doesn't mean you're going to neglect other area of your life. I'll give an example for my business, right? Over the next 3 months, we're going to be expanding into Alberta, which means that we're going to be opening up a wait list for taking patients and clients in Alberta. Does that mean I'm going to stop seeing other patients and clients? No, it doesn't mean that. But it does mean that there's going to be a level of offboarding that's happening over the next season. And what that looks like, it means that we're not hustling to, like I said, there was a time when we had a family member around and I really pushed myself to see as many people as possible because of our long wait lists. But I'm not doing that in this season because it just is not the right season for that. Okay, you're welcome. Yeah, so Tony, you prioritize the key areas based on the season that you're in. Exactly. Exactly. Again, I'm going to reiterate, it doesn't mean that you're going to ignore everything else. For example, just because I'm filing my taxes, just because I am connecting with extended family members, just because I am doing a parenting program, does not mean that date nights will stop, does not mean that I'm going to stop my daily Bible study, does not mean that I'm going to stop my prayer calls. None of that is going to stop. It just means that when it comes to growth and um, designing my life, I'm focused based on the season. Okay. All right. Any other questions about that? What I'm taking you through is what I call my Project 90 framework. This is what it looks like for me. Okay. So I have extended family as number one. Number two, parenting. And number three, my finances. This is just what the 90-day goal is. By the end of March, I've participated in at least 9 out of 12 family meetings. And then the objective to foster closeness through communication. You don't have to do all of this. This is just what I do to crystallize my goal. I pick the domain of my life that I'm focused on based on my season. And like I said, connection. So connecting with my extended family, connecting with my kids, connecting with my finances. I'm just joking, but taxes have to be done regardless. I have my 90-day goal and then my why. My why. Okay. These are just other things like my identity goals, not really necessary for today's conversation, but I just wanted to show you what this looks like. If you're in my community, you would have seen this already. I did a workshop back in April and I shared the template for this, but you don't have to do it this way. I'm just showing you that this is what I do. I realize that everybody's brain works differently. This is how I do it. This is how I lay it out. I still do think you should do the 90-day goals, but you can lay it out in a way that makes sense for your brain. Okay. So now remember I said that just because you've picked oh, our time is far spent, guys. So I'm going to just try and wrap things up because I know that everyone's pretty busy this time of year. Remember I said that just because you have those major projects doesn't mean you neglect the other areas. Well, this is what I mean. These are all the areas of my life. So my spiritual life, my health, my hobbies, my marriage, my parenting, my finances, my business, my businesses, because there's two of them, my professional development, my relationships, networking, and my home. Those are my personal domains. For you, you might have other domains. Maybe it's not businesses, maybe it's your career, maybe you have an NGO, maybe you have a ministry, so everyone has different domains. These are my domains. And these are the things in January that I need to get done in those different domains. So this might look like habits. This might look like to-dos. This might look like tasks. This might look like projects, right? And so, or smaller projects, much smaller projects, right? So again, we're not neglecting those areas of other areas of your life. So like I said, marriage, the goal is for emotional connection, and the habit or the task is date night on Wednesdays, right? It's not a major project. It's something that we're already doing, or we're trying to maintain, or we are going to maintain. My professional development. It's not a major project, but I'm going to spend about an hour a day or an hour every other day going through the curriculum. Again, if I get to it, fine. If I don't, it's okay, but it's on my to-do list. And I have a time, a section of my week that I've designated to that. There's also networking. Like I said, it's not really a major thing that I'm focused on as a project, but I have been invited to speak this month. And so I will be going to that, right? So all that to say, because I know that many of you high achievers are already like, well, how can I pick one? Or I have so much going on. Again, remember, we're not neglecting the other areas of your life. We're just organizing it so that you know what you need to focus on per time. All right. So Love Letters to You has a question. Okay, can you please share this template with us? Yes, I will. If you're on the email list, I will go ahead and share it today. That's really the only way I can share it. So just make sure you're on the email list, Toy. I believe that you are, Toy, but I can also share it with you privately as well too. So I will make note to share it to the email list. Love Letters to You asks, what if I have more than one goal for each domain? Okay, I would love to get more details so that I can help answer that question properly. So what do you mean more than one goal for each domain? Are you talking about the initial three projects? Or are you now talking about all of the other domains of your life? What if I have more than one? Do you mind just giving more details? And that way I can help answer that question better. So Kimberly Young asks, since we are only picking one, at what point do we pull in the other goals? Q2. Okay, so you're okay, good question. So that's monthly. Monthly. So picking one project was just the first part. So every 3 months. Okay. This doesn't change until Q2. Your project 90 doesn't change until Q2. So over the next 3 months, I'm going to be working on connecting with my extended family. I'm going to be working on staying consistent with my parenting program. I'm going to be working on filing my taxes. As Q2 approaches, these three will likely change. The middle one might not change because it's a 1 year parenting program, but the first two, the first one and the third one will likely change. So in Q2, we're going to then discern the season. And remember, I said that your season might stay the same. So these three things might still stay the same, but likely they will change, or at least one of them will change because it takes about 66 days to form a habit. And the goal is, I'll go back to my marriage example, Q4 2025. So this past quarter that's just finishing, emotional connection was on this list. Emotional connection was on this list. Okay. But now that we have a rhythm, now that we have a system, it's no longer on this list. So going into Q1 2026, there's different projects there. Okay. Now, the other domains, like I said, these will change monthly. These are kind of like my to-dos, your to-dos, things that you want to get done, little things that you want to get done around the house. Maybe you want to, I'm trying to think of examples here. Maybe you want to, so one of the things that I did in November for my finances was I restructured my accounts. Right? I restructured my, and that was just a November goal. It wasn't a major project that took 3 months. It literally just took 1 or 2 days for me to open a new account here and redirect my funds. But it was on my to-do for November. Another example might be conferences that you're attending, right? And so that might just be a monthly thing, like just something that you do monthly. So if you see, this says January 2026. It says daily, weekly, monthly, which is very different from your 30-day project, your 90-day projects, January, February, March. So this is going to change quarterly. This is going to change monthly. Okay. Does that help? The love letters to you asks, okay, the initial three say I'm looking to achieve 2 goals in my wellness, and wellness is, okay, yeah, and wellness is one of my 3 priority domains. So yeah, that works. So let me use my wellness example. So Q4 wellness was on my 90-day project list. And I also had 2 goals on that, or maybe even 3. So one of them was to start lifting weights. And so that was going to the gym 2 times. I gave myself 2 times a week to weight lift. And then the other was my hair, right? It was a wellness goal, and I really wanted to revive my hair because I noticed that it was very dry, it was breaking, it was thinning out. And so even though that was a Project 90 goal, a major goal under health and wellness, there were a couple of things under that too. And so my weightlifting was going to the gym after dropping off my son. The gym is on the way back. So I would drop him off, stop off at the gym, and then come back home. And then my hair, it looked like scalp massages every night. It looked like, if you're a natural hair girly, you'll know about the baggy method. It looked about using the baggy method. I got a brand of products that were specifically for natural hair, and they've been working very well. And so even though my health is my one domain, I had a couple of goals under that. And that's fine too. As long as you're not overwhelming yourself, as long as you're not saying, I'm going to lift weights and then I'm going to cut out sugar and then I'm going to go vegan and then I'm going to reorganize my kitchen, then it starts to become like, okay, these are looking like a lot of projects. And so it's okay as long as you're being honest with your capacity and what that looks like. Okay. Does that help, love letters to you? Okay, glad that that helps. I'm glad that that helps. There's one more part to this. Okay. So just to summarize, we are working on the practical aspect of setting our goals. I started off by saying that you should try to do away with annual goal setting because what happens is that the goals will expand to fill the time that you give it. I encourage you to go based on 90 days when it comes to your goals. Then I encouraged you to think about the season that you're in and what the season is calling, what is calling for your attention. And some of you will know that there is something that is literally crying for your attention. It is crying for your attention, right? For me, it was my relationships with my extended family. That was something that was crying for my attention. It was something that I really wanted to focus on. And so based on that, you then set your Project 90 goals. So what you're going to really put in 80% of your energy working on, or let's say even, I don't know, 75% of your energy working on over the next 3 months. But then that doesn't mean you neglect the other areas of your life. The other areas of your life, you're going to have smaller tasks, smaller to-dos, smaller things that are also still going to get done to keep the momentum going in those areas. Maybe they are habits that you've already established before that you're just going to keep going. You just don't want to forget about them. So you put them on the list, you put them in your calendar. And so that way, yes, you're focusing on your three major domains, but the other domains still have little things that you are doing to move the needle forward there as well, too. And the final part, okay, the final part is your checklist. Okay. Very important when it comes to planning. At least it's been important for me. All right. What are the actual things? And everybody is different when it comes to how they actually check things off. You can put it in your daily planner. You can put it, I like to still use my Word doc, my Google Doc document that I that I print out. And so it may look like, okay, I need to send reminders to my family. We're meeting on so date. It may look like that we need to decide on a date when we're not meeting on WhatsApp, we're meeting on Zoom. It may look like I've decided to hire I'm calling her, I can't remember the title of the role I'm calling her, but I'm hiring sort of like a relationship connection team member, operations manager. I can't remember the name of the role that I gave her, but I'm bringing on a team member to help me with this particular goal. So it looked like, connecting with her, interviewing her, coming up with negotiating her rates. Those are the kinds of things that you're going to put on your checklist. For birthdays, I often will put order the cake, order the gifts, put the loot bags together, order the balloons, right? So, and this is a month to month thing. This is a month to month thing. If you're going on vacation, booking the tickets, booking the hotel, packing, getting the items that you need to do, okay? Because it's one thing to have your goals, but it's another thing to actually plan out how you're going to get from point A to point B. Okay. For your taxes, connect with accountant. That's a checkbox. Gather your income statements, another checkbox. Review your expenses, another checkbox. So when it comes to then breaking things down, you want to be able to go step by step by step into what are the things that need to get done. If you're a business owner, if you're launching a new program, you might want to decide, okay, what is the name of the program? How much am I going to charge for the program? Deciding on the rates of the program. Where am I going to host the program? Developing the curriculum of the program. So once you've decided on your project, you then need to break it down into step by step by step by step. And that step by step by step by step will be what you put in your planner. It's what you might even delegate to a team member, but having it laid out, because you might say, okay, I want to write a book. That's my project 90. I want to write the draft of my book. But when are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? What platform are you going to use? Are you going to dictate or are you going to type? All those things need to be written down somewhere, because if they're not, you're going to get so overwhelmed by all the details. So earlier someone had talked about professional exam. So that might look like registering for the exam, paying for the registration. It may look like buying the materials, right? These are checklist items, buying the materials. It may look like set up my study space. It may look like tell family members that this is when I'm going to be studying, or research a co-working space, or research a library where I can go to study, right? These are all the things that we carry in our brains that overwhelm us and stress us out. And when we're overwhelmed and stressed, we avoid, we procrastinate, or we leave things to the last minute. And you might say, okay, Yewande, this just seems like too much. It seems like a lot. I mean, I don't have time for this. And my question to you is, what's the alternative? And has the alternative worked out for you? What's the alternative? And has the alternative worked out for you? I'm going to bet that the answer to that question is no, because many times we are overwhelmed by all the details. So I'm going to go just run through it one more time. I know that there are a few different pieces, but I'm going to run through it one more time. And if you have any questions, please just let me know. I'm happy to answer the questions. So the first part was doing away with annual goal setting and bringing it down to 90 days, 1/4. The second part was discerning the season. What is the season calling for you right now? Is the season calling for you to focus on your health? Is it calling for you to focus on your relationships? Is it calling for you to focus on your finances, your parenting? What is the season calling for you right now? Based on the season, what are maximum 3 areas, 3 goals that you want to set? Maximum 3. It could be 1, it could be 2, maximum 3 project-based goals. Project-based goals, defined goals. And then finally, and then the next thing we said is that just because we have those 1, 2, or 3 project-based goals does not mean we neglect other areas of our life. We follow through, we keep things going by continuing with our habits, by having 1 or 2 to-do lists, things that we do here and there on our to-do, on our task list, on our daily, weekly, monthly list. And then finally, I said, when you've decided on what those projects looks like, when you have decided on what those tasks or habits look like, creating a checklist so that you can get all that stuff that's in your brain that's causing you to feel stressed, tired, and overwhelmed. You have it written down somewhere, a checklist where you say, okay, done this, checked, booked the cake, check, booked the tickets, check. I've, reminded family members of our meeting, check. I have booked a connection strategist, check. I have done all those things, check, check, check. And when you do this, what you're going to realize is that you're going to get to the end of your month and you're going to look back and say, wow, I did all of this or most of this in a month. You're going to get to the end of your quarter and you're going to be like, wow, I have completely transformed my relationship with my family. I've completely up-leveled my parenting. I filed my taxes. I have launched a new program in 3 months, something that may have taken me 6 months, something that I've been thinking about doing for a year, 5 years. When you do it in this step-by-step program, you are going to be so blown away by what you're able to do and what you're able to accomplish. All right, so we're going to leave it here for today, but before we go, I would love to know if there are any questions. I'd love to know if there are any questions before we go. I will send out the template to my email list. So if you're wanting to see how I lay things out, I will definitely be sending the template to my email list later. And one thing that I also want to mention is this isn't something that I planned to do, but after having the co-working sessions that I did in Q4, I got requests to say, okay, can we do this more? Can we do this more? Okay, Dr. Yewande, you've taught us on how to set goals. And I know how to set the goals, but one thing that I struggle with is follow through. One thing that I struggle with is actually getting things done, implementing, executing. I just tend to avoid. I feel overwhelmed. I put it off. I procrastinate. I am going to be sharing to my email list a program, a 3-month program. Okay, it's going to be 3 months because oftentimes what I find is I find it, I don't launch the same offer more than once. So we're going to start off with 3 months where we come together with our goals. There's going to be co-working. So when we come together, we work on the things that we said we're going to work on. There's also going to be accountability and check-ins as well too, where weekly we meet and we say, okay, this is what we're going to be working on for the week. And at the end of the week, we come together and we say, this is what we were able to accomplish. So it's not therapy. I'm making that very clear. It's not therapy. I know that I'm a mental health therapist, but this is not therapy. This is also not coaching. So I'm not coming to coach you on anything. There will be teaching sessions similar to this one. I'm also going to bring my own personal financial literacy coach, my own personal finance coach to come and talk on financial structure and finances and all of that in those 3 months. But apart from that, it's more heavy on execution and implementation, where we come, we bring our work and we work together, and accountability. So that way you don't just set your goals and you forget them, you set them and we're moving the needle forward week by week by week by week. So it's called the Momentum Room. It's called the Momentum Room, and I'm going to be sharing more details to my email list first, and then if there's still spots, then I'll bring it out to the bigger community. And so you definitely want to be on the email list if this is something that you're interested in. There is an application form because I realize that it's not for everybody. If you are in a healing season, if you're in an emotional recovery season, it may not be the best program for you. This is strictly for people who are wanting to execute and do the work. Okay, so more details on that coming soon. It's called the Momentum Room. It's a 3-week cohort, a 3-month cohort where we come together and we do the work required to move the needle forward on our goals. Okay. Any questions? Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad this was helpful. When I look back on because I keep records, it's to me 2026 honestly was an amazing year. I said this. Oh, I love that. Crede says I've booked my exam. You see? You see? You see? I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for you. You see, this is exactly what it is. Just having that momentum and keeping that momentum going and just getting things done. I won't say how long I've been putting it off for. This makes me so happy. And this is exactly why I do what I do. Congratulations and well done. Congratulations and well done. Honestly, the reason why I started the co-working sessions in the first place was because I saw over and over and over again. And I know you, Crady, you're high achieving, you're ambitious, you do so much, but there are just certain things that we just need a little bit of momentum, a little bit of a push to get done. And so this makes me so happy, so delighted. I'm very happy for you. Congratulations. All right. And so again, that's something that you can check off your list. Exam booked, on to the next, right? On to the next. So well done. All right, everybody, we're going to call it a morning, afternoon, night, depending on where you are. Like I said, the replay will be available. I'm very excited for what 2026 has to offer. Like I said, 2025 was a wonderful year, and I'm so grateful to God for that. And I'm looking forward to 2026. I really am. And I hope you are too. Okay. All right, everybody. I will catch you soon. If you're on my email list, look out for an email with the link to today's replay, a link to the template, and also later on, more information about the momentum room. All right, everybody. Take care and happy new year. Bye.